What's up, everybody? Welcome to this month's edition of Longbox. This is July. We're going to talk about Superior Spider-Man, which was a favorite of mine when it came out way back in 2013, I think it started. 2012?
This was a
2013, somewhere around.
2013 release.
Yeah, okay, January, right? Um,
It was, I think so. Yeah,
so
January
yeah,
2013. The Superior Spider-Man #2 came out.
so Superior Spider-Man. We're talking about the first 5 issues, which is what Marvel Comics decided to collect in their first volume of their trade paperbacks. So this story goes on for quite a ways after. Anybody who's read it and is listening to the show, I'm sure you're either eager to read on or you already have. And anybody who hasn't and is listening to the show, you're probably going to want to pick those up. And I don't know. We're going to try our best not to spoil what happens after number 5, but I can't guarantee that we won't.
I
Have you
can
guys read?
guarantee you that we will
I can't-
not because we haven't read it yet.
Me and Joe haven't. We read up to 5 because that's what
So you don't know.
we were
Yeah.
told
Okay.
what to do, and we
yeah,
did it.
Oh, boy.
we did our homework assignment.
It's all on me. So essentially, as the story starts out, Spider-Man and Peter Parker switch bodies, and Spider-Man in. Is there a question?
Yes.
Is there a
Before
question?
before you
Joseph?
jump into it, I just want to ask everybody. I know how much you love it, Joe. What did you think of what you read?
Yeah, it was probably one of the best ones that we've recommended to start reading. That you've recommended so
Oh,
far.
I'm glad you guys like it because I was worried about it because
Well,
I thought it was good 5 years ago, but I hadn't read it in a while.
Spider-Man was my favorite growing up.
Right.
That's how I evolved.
Dan
into
Slott
the-
is good at what he. Yeah, he's. I think he still works on Spider-Man.
It's funny you bring this up though, because when we were talking about, we have this. It seems like there's no preparation for these shows, but there's actually preparation for these shows. We had that list of comic books we knew we were doing a Spider-Man for July because the movie came out, and I threw like 6 or 7 different Spider-Man titles that I thought were good, and you went with Superior Spider-Man. And I was like, oh god, the idea of Doctor Octopus. This is the part of the comic book stuff that I can't usually take. The idea that someone else's mind is in someone else's body and this kind of stuff. I was like, oh, great. Now,
Yeah.
all right. Now, I was like, I was not into it at all. But I remembered the overnights. First of all, you come in with your monster. And kids, the monster that Chris gets when he goes and works an overnight is not one you can get over the counter at 7-Eleven. When the gentleman from behind the counter sees Chris walks in, he
BFC.
brings him to the back of the freezer, and they get this jug of Monster that's not legally sold anywhere else, right? So he's sitting there with this jug of Monster, and he's so excited about this comic book. So when I start reading it, I wasn't into it, but I remembered how excited you were, and I said, all right, I have to give this a chance. And let me tell you, the minute Peter Parker shows up, still inside of his body with his mind, trying to figure things out, and you got those comments back and forth. Dr. Octopus can't hear him, but the reader can hear him, and it's just hysterical. And that really makes the book for me, and that was so good. And then book 2, book 3, book 4, book 5, they were all great, So I struggled a little bit in the beginning of the first book, but then once you got to see Peter Parker in there, and I love that they draw him like a ghost because you don't want to just see word bubbles being, with PP next to it, so you know.
No, it's important to see his facial expressions and all that. Yeah,
into Spider-Man, he also
and he
changes
looks.
into Spider-Man.
Yes.
Was that?
Whenever Doc Ock or Spider-Man changes into Spider-Man costume, so does his ghostly figure.
Right, which is a good call.
Yes. So I really enjoyed it, Chris. It was a good call to do this. It really was.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys thought so. So the it was weird to go to because I know we wanted to talk about a Spider-Man book, and I was like, well, do we want to do a Spider-Man book where Spider-Man's not Spider-Man? But it's one that I've been wanting to reread for a while now. So
I would actually say it's even more Spider-Man than you'd like to imagine. He goes through the same moral compass and understanding the same hardships that Spider-Man faces, but even more so from the other side. To see a rogue battle the same mindset of his villain or his hero or his arch enemy, and plays out so well, it's pretty spectacular to see it unfold that way.
Right, and there is like a part of he kind of becomes Peter Parker, and so they switch bodies, and Dr. Octopus's body dies. And as far as my understanding, and I hadn't read these since they came out, so I could be a little bit off, but Otto Octavius was dying anyways. And that's kind of what led to the events where they were going to switch bodies. I'm pretty sure that's how it happened.
That's what
So
it
he
seems
inherits,
like, yeah, from the scientist's point of view.
he gets Spider-Man's body, but he also inherits aspects of his memory. And he starts to understand why he does the things he does, and therefore he inherits Peter's, what you call it?
Spidey sense.
Lesson of great responsibility. As we all know, the big thing with the Spider-Man books. So he's going to live his life as Peter Parker, but he's not a bad guy anymore. He's gonna fight crime, and he's gonna be Spider-Man, but he's still Otto Octavius, so he's not gonna do things the same way, and he's gonna make some questionable choices, which is what's really great. And people starts to catch on, but it opens up with him fighting this new version of the Sinister Six. Right, so this is after Superman 700. By the way, amazing Spider-Man. Did I say Superman?
Yeah.
Amazing Spider-Man 700 ended there, and then it went on for there were like 700.1, 0.2, 0.3. They're about 0.5 issues after it, but then that was it. And that's the Amazing Spider-Man run. That's the 50-year long run. It's over. They've since rebooted it twice, I believe, which is terrible. Doing the reboot once, this is kind of getting off topic. Doing it once, like the New 52 did, great. And, let it run for a while, but then they just do it again, and it's just garbage. But anyway.
Don't get started with that, because what New 52 did was just, they go and talk, all the press tours was what, not only are we going to reboot the whole system, but Action Comics and Detective Comics, which was the two longest running comic books that DC had, we are rebooting those to 0, right? So I'll just give you a number because I'm not sure what it was. Right at New 52, let's say Action Comics and Detectives were in the 900s, and then they rebooted down to 0. Now, New 52 bombs, so they have to come back again, and they started with the rebirth, all new and everything like that. But now they want to have their cake and eat it too, because they're going to get to 1,000 with Action Comics, and they're going to get 1,000 with the Detective Comics. So what do? They go back to wherever the number was at 900. They add the New 52 number, so how many years they did it. So now they're at, say, 997, 987, something like that, so they can get to their 1,000. Does it mean anything if you said you were rebooting it and starting it over? It's not the same line. You know what I mean? I know it's a rant, but I can't stand that they keep rebooting these books. It's like, I know they're trying to figure out how to get more people to read comic books, but there's got to be something different to do it. So
I'm right there with you. But this is a little happy... effect of it, right? Because they ended that, and we have to spend about a year and 8 months with Superior Spider-Man, which is a long time, man. It went on for a lot longer. I remember first reading it, being, I knew the concept. I was like, oh, it's going to be exciting. And Peter Parker, boom, shows up issue number 1. At the time, I was like, oh, that's so cheap. This is going to be over like that, But they didn't do it that way. So we take on Sinister Six, and Spider-Man is not acting like Spider-Man. He's vicious, right? There's a part where Boomerang, I believe, goes like, Spider-Man doesn't do that, and Spider-Man just scratches at his chest, cuts him open. We see Spider-Man. He's working in the labs at Horizon, or Peter Parker, rather. So Otto Octavius has taken that over. He's working there, and he's becoming very distant from his coworkers and focusing on all these inventions, trying to make Spider-Man better. And he does. The comic book doesn't leave it to our judgment whether or not this Spider-Man is better than the other Spider-Man. They outright say it, that he's getting way more done. He's being a lot more productive. And he's also seemingly, at least in these first 5 issues, being somewhat successful in his personal life. And that's important to Otto Octavius as well. It's not just that Spider-Man's successful, but that his life as Peter Parker is also successful. He goes on to call himself a doctor, and everybody looks at him like he's crazy. And he realizes that Peter never did get his doctorate. And that's another part. He goes back to school. It's very important to him that this version of Peter Parker is every bit as successful and superior than Peter Parker himself.
Right.
So. And that's another interesting thing. There's parts where he feels, he's definitely a man of pride, for sure. And he gets annoyed that Peter Parker is going to get all this credit for his inventions, but then he has to tell himself, no, I am Peter Parker. And I think as we go on, he just firmly believes that, yes, he is Peter Parker.
So, yeah, and then one of his very first struggles that he starts off with in book 1 is his relationship with Mary Jane.
Right, he tackles that real quick. I mean, and I don't want to be too. He clearly wants to just have sex with Mary Jane.
Oh no.
I don't think it's a stretch to imagine that Otto Octavius isn't getting a lot of Mary Jane level women. Is that like a nice way to? I don't know.
Yes, Peter
so
Parker's. Yeah,
he's
he
trying
says
and
the
trying.
and everything, yeah.
Obviously, after 700 issues, that is a very strained relationship, and he's trying to give it another try, and it's not going well. And he makes a decision that Peter never could have made of like, no, this is crazy. This is never going to work, and he ends it.
That was my favorite part of.
And even Peter gives him props for doing it.
He does.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I really want to say what he actually says to her because I thought it was the best part of it. And when he finally figures it out, he says, here it is. It says, because the two of us together, it's insane. I can do the math. You love me as Peter and Spider-Man, but you can't be with me because I'm Peter and Spider-Man. It's a recursive loop, an equation that can never be solved. What are you saying? He says, I promise to keep you safe, but our relationship is the greatest trap of all. The only way to free you is to move on. And, like, it's just really, it's shot well. Like, some of the artwork in this was well done, like you were watching.
Yeah, Ryan Stegman did most of them.
You were watching it happen. There's tiny details and everything. Like, I mean, I always comment the artwork because for me, every comic book that I read is just one more to the gallery that I have, and it's not a lot I have. So seeing the time frame, the time changes, and the way that some people do it, and even like things that most people, you guys probably notice all the time, but looking at the tiling on the floor, like at how he had that old robot that he converted back, and it looks like an old robot with a weird keyboard on the front chain of it. Like there's just so many things that they take time into to make it actually look like a scene from a storyboard versus just a comic book with pictures. And I take immense pride in reading those things when they take the extra care to show the emotion on these people's faces. Like when he first met and he shook JJ's hand, like the smile and the looks on all their faces, and even the Peter's ghost, which was like in utter shock and awe, was great. Things like that. I love that. That part was great for me.
You know, it's funny, but like the art of visual storytelling, there are people who work professionally in comics that aren't good at it, that are just good at drawing, but they can't tell the story, and you start getting gaps. Like, how did this happen? How did that happen? And that's not the case with this book, certainly. Very, very talented team working on this one. So there's one of his first foes here is the Vulture, which actually does tie it into, Spider-Man Homecoming.
Right.
So that happens. He hunts him down. Does he use the spider bots to do it at that point?
At that
No, he uses a magnetic signal to track down tubes.
Correct.
Following a magnetic trail. And because they had worked together in the Sinister Six, he is going to actually give him an out. Just stop what you're doing and be about your way.
And not only just stop what you're doing, I'm going to pay you something like $10 million that I have in an offshore account.
Yeah, he said
the biggest retire score. And go. Yeah,
he set the biggest score, and he's going to help him go on his way. But the Vulture does not listen, and it escalates super quickly.
Yeah, it does. And his little fleet of mini Vultures comes in and attacks, and Octavius realizes that it's a child, and he says, "You made me strike a child," and that's when he loses his cool.
But this is also the very first time, and the only time that it happens in this first volume 1, where Spider-Man, Peter Parker, the real one, gets to access Octavius' memories.
Right. Yeah, and he sees his father was.
He first got to see the conversation between Vulture and Octavius when they were part of the original Sinister Six and when they set up the first original operation of base. But then he gets to see, and this was the part that was the best part of a story. Now, every superhero has their coming of age story of what makes them woo. With Peter Parker, it was not saving the wrestler from
not saving his
uncle, and doing
not stopping
the wrestler.
Yeah.
And this, of how Octavius ended up becoming was because of his father being abusive to him, and that's what started this cycle and this downward spiral. And I think that was for the first time that Spider-Man got to understand who Octavius was as well. And I think that was more important to the story than what happens to him and why they become, and probably why they're the two greatest villains. I think one of Spider-Man's most iconic villains between the two.
I think a lot of people considered Dr. Octopus Spider-Man's like go-to greatest villain. You know, the Joker to Spider-Man's Batman. And speaking of Batman, they have a spider signal introduced into this. They have a spider signal, and that's what's used to defeat the Vulture at the end of the third issue.
Yeah, but they have a better part right before it, and I was talking about this with Chris earlier because he called me like at the same time I was reading it. I love that he blows it up, and he's like, "What do you mean? Why would you just destroy taxpayers' money?" I thought it was a test. Because why would you have a big sign where all the villains will know where I'm coming at and can find me in the same...
Which the first thing you think about is Batman.
Yes.
Why hasn't Batman ever thought of that?
Like, literally, it's just like such an obscene, like, perfect thing.
Well, I mean, maybe Batman wants everybody to know where he's at.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, he's looking for a fight. But yeah, it was pretty funny. The spider signal.
That Marvel versus DC little nudge.
Yeah, right.
Just little stupid people. But yeah, no.
So we see more of him being superior. Aunt May, you know, has had some sort of injury and she's in a rough time, and he sets out to develop the technology so that she could walk
again.
Is there
an industry? I thought that it was just because she was just old. Did they say
she is pretty old?
Yeah.
Yeah. God. I'm not 100% sure what had happened prior to that.
She's really old.
And that's during that time is when he finds out that Parker doesn't have his doctorate, and that he goes back to school to get it. He goes back to school for it.
Wait, don't skip for a second though, because this is actually a big deal to me. When he does that, he was supposed to go check on. I forget who he was supposed to check on. He had he had information about whoever he was chasing down, and he didn't go and do anything with it. And Peter's like, "What's more important than going against this guy?" And then you see him helping Aunt May, and Peter looks stupid. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Peter never puts these people that he supposedly loves in front of fighting anybody. You know, he's always trying to...
He wasn't chasing anyone. It was a distress call for a fire, and Peter Parker was upset.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, and that's one of the things that he chooses to do that Peter couldn't do, is he's able to prioritize events that are happening. So maybe that can be taken care of by the fire department. He doesn't need to do it. He can go about his life.
One, right? I mean,
and that's how his life starts improving, his personal life.
Right. There was a lot about that. About one, he had the spider bots, right? To go
spider bots
and patrolling. And Peter's like, wow, that's actually a cool idea.
Genius.
But then the other thing was when he was chasing down a guy, he alerted the police to where they were going to be, and it's like, and which kind of drove me a little crazy. Where Peter's like, in all these years of me doing this, I never thought to bring the police in as backup. And
that's
I'm like,
what they're supposed to do.
I'm like, what? I don't know. So
no, and you know what? It makes sense. A superhero wouldn't want to bring in, especially in a villain or a case of that nature, a superhero.
But he thought it was a good idea.
It was a good idea.
So if he's thinking it's a good idea, then he's thinking that he should have done it.
Maybe, yeah. So, but I think there's a lot of things that we do that in hindsight's 20/20. When you're rushing off to save someone, it's.
I think part of his the way that Peter Parker does things is very reactive, right? So something happens and he goes to stop it.
Right.
Where I think Otto Octavius can be a little bit more proactive and prevent things from happening and see things that are happening. He's got the spider bots watching out for things, and he can prioritize, like I just said earlier, prioritize what's important to him. Peter Parker never thought, I don't believe that in 700 issues that he never thought to ask the cops for help.
Right.
But he is very much like, oh, something's going on. I have to get there. I have to get there right now. I have to stop it. You know, just too busy, just too focused on the problem at hand to think about, you know, that the cops actually do have a job to do and can probably handle some of these things.
And that's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. Right. By the way, I like that when he's Peter Parker in the lab, he's wearing the goggles like Doc Ock would be wearing, right? So I thought that was like a little throwback. That's pretty cool, you know?
And people all around him are noticing he's just acting different. He's saying different things, you know? So at this point, we what's his name escapes from Ravencroft Asylum, which is a massacre, I believe it
The
was.
massacre is correct.
So he escapes. He's a bad guy. Spider-Man's put him away. He escapes again, and he does terrible, terrible, terrible things. Right, just starts murdering people right away.
And then this is a big part here. This
is huge.
Yeah, this is when Spider-Man, or Octavius as Spider-Man, decides that is it. No more innocent life. I was an idiot to let this lunatic live. That stops now. I give you my word, Jameson. I will end this man. And then you'll see, and this is really cool because this is how the scene is shot or drawn.
God, you keep saying shot.
Because I can see it.
It's similar though.
And I can see it being acted out where his ghostly figure is being broken up and disturbed by the presence and the strength and the mindset of this current Spider-Man to kill another being, which is disturbing him. So, and he says, no, that's not how we do this. We don't get to decide who, and it just breaks apart. And the phrasing just ends as he stands and does his superhero pose. So it's just quite brilliant where you get to see, and where something that's just being a saying and a phrasing of an inner monologue is being actually played out through this depiction of this comic layout. So it moves on, and then this is where you get to find out how twisted the guy is. The massacre.
Burger Town, right? There's a big massacre at Burger Town. He moves into New York City. Am I crazy? And then they go. He's gonna do this massacre in
Grand Central Station. But here's my here's this other thing. So now he goes to where this other scientist is, right? And he approaches him first because he wants his facial recognition software
for his spider bots, right?
For his spider bots, and he doesn't want to give it up because he's afraid that gives
Spider-Man
too much power.
Yeah.
And
which is
and I just thought that was, and you're back at that scene where we first learn about what Spider-Man's actually about, because Spider-Man is one of the truest characters where he faces, where he feels that sense of responsibility for having so much power. With great power becomes great responsibility, and now we're giving Dr. Octavius this more power. Now, does he see it as more responsibility? And it's like the question that they have, and I think that's important to find.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That comes back to responsibility, and he's so cocky that I don't think he doubts for a second that, like, yeah, I should be the guy that does this, that has this power. I don't think he doesn't, think about that for 1 second. And he does, and it shows successful. He's able to figure it all out. He's able to, one, go to the hostages, right? Because he knows Massacre always has, this sort of like backup plan where he has hostages somewhere that he can destroy should things go awry. He goes, he takes care of them, frees them, and he just jumps right into Grand Central.
We're missing this little section.
The B storyline of him and the Coca-Cola representative?
No, well that's there, but that I was talking about when he actually pauses again, because he makes a lot of Spider-Man. I'm getting confusing myself. When Spider-Man makes the next beeline stop to see his tutor. And and I think this is weird because he just keeps making these things and showing how important it is to actually have a life that Spider-Man never took the opportunity to have and still be successful. Successful. There it is. But and then I think some of the quips that you were talking about earlier were how we have where he was saying certain things and like the inner monologues of like, oh, but if you keep this up, I'm going to have to go work out because you're eating so much food, you fat tub.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, then he gets to Grand Central Station, and where were you leading off? Sorry for cutting you off.
There is this bit that like Burger Town has a lot of bad press because the massacre happened, right? And nobody wants to eat there. So he offers the CEO or whoever's in charge to wear a Coca-Cola shirt during the Grand Central Massacre. They're the rival company of Burger Town, which is
it's actually
interesting, funny bit.
It's a brilliant plan.
And we find out that she does take that offer, and she pays for it. She doesn't tell anybody, and Spider-Man takes her down too. Man, he's that thorough. he's superior. He really is at this point. And most importantly, not only does he use a gun, but he kills somebody with a gun.
Now, you've read on. Is
Yes.
that confirmed?
I was going to
Yes.
ask the same. Okay.
Yeah, he is dead.
Because
He has
in the
been
end
killed.
of Volume 1, you don't get that. You don't understand. You don't see
It
that.
fades away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just is a bright light, and then they say he neutralized the shooter. Neutralize the shooter means he could have just disarmed him and never decided to do that. So that's his only one death.
As of I can't honestly remember, and like I said, I'm not going to spoil anything. I don't remember if he kills again, but he does certainly kill, massacre here. And it's interesting is because there's an old man who tells him to do it, and I think they interview people.
And they do, and they say, "I will
and-
tell you what happened. More of you'd be dead if Spidey weren't there to save us." And then you have Jameson saying, and a proud example of how this city we have a zero tolerance for, and it just keeps going on. And that's when the spider bots show up and hack her TV systems and stuff like that.
And this comes into that conversation about responsibility, and power. It's, as comic book fans, we're mostly trained to believe that killing is wrong no matter the circumstance, and I'd like to think that that's what I believe too in the real world. But that doesn't stop the fact that if something like this did happen, and somebody had the power to just eliminate it from eliminate that person, how would we feel? We would probably champion that person. I think most of the country would. That's a whole nother discussion. But they you guys didn't want to touch that at all.
No, I
was thinking
because I'm thinking of Punisher.
I was thinking of a Superman breaking Zod's neck and you being all mad. So I'm like,
Yeah, well, again, that's Superman. That's his character.
And I guess it always
if Peter
varies.
Parker did this, I wouldn't be happy with it either. But Otto is going to take different measures. I never said that it was wrong to kill Zod.
It just upsets him.
It was just
Superman.
It was wrong. I thought it was wrong for Superman to kill Zod, especially when he didn't have to.
It's a whole can of worms.
Yeah, we could do a whole nother show on that one.
Because it was not portrayed the way it could have been. He was not boxed in a situation
where he had to.
They want you to believe he is, but all that father had to do was walk away with his family, and then Superman would have been all right.
And the Spider-Man thing is different because this has happened before, and it's happening again.
And it'll happen again if you put him
he's
away.
He's not crazy.
Yeah.
He's gonna...
It's amazing that Batman's never snapped. Every single body gets out of the Arkham Asylum, like every other day.
Well,
no.
In the movies he has snapped.
Yeah, in some of them.
Yeah, he blew up Bam Bam Bigelow with a bomb in Batman Returns, but it's not important.
and in Batman v Superman, he killed more people than Schwarzenegger did in Commando. So,
did we do the count tally on that?
Oh yeah, I did it before, and I used to know the Commando one by heart, so it's there, it's right there.
So
again, another podcast.
I don't know. It's just that's probably the biggest question to answer in this one. Like, where's the line? And it ends. Superior Volume 1 through 5 ends with him saying, "I see everything in this city, everything. That is my power and my responsibility." Again, using the same words, but turning them on their head to fit Octavius'
way of thinking. Yes, very good.
And then it says to watch over and judge you all in the first
craziness.
Yeah, so it's
really brilliant.
It's
I almost like.
Yeah, go ahead.
I almost want to we should read the next ones and just talk about it again.
Hey, we got to, we'll keep doing this, but you know what I mean? So we can always do that at another time. Yeah. But
was there anything about the book that you guys didn't like?
Okay.
Didn't work for you?
The whole, you have to put aside because it's a comic book, but the whole concept that Octavius's mind or brain, whatever you want to say, is inside of Peter Parker's body. That drives me crazy. But
I think
the stories around
it
are written so well that you can just say, hey, I can get around it. I don't care anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, sure. It's an idea on paper that would be like, what? But then you see it, and Peter's still in there, and he works almost as his consciousness. There's a point where...
There's a lot of points, and I think that's
a physical
Spidey sense.
There's like a physical act that is prevented. I don't know if he was going to hit somebody or something, but he doesn't do it. he stops, and that's Peter stopping him. There's that part of him in
That
there.
was in the first one.
Does Peter get stronger as time goes on?
I think because he can start to hear him. You can hear.
I could tell you guys more about it off the once we're done with the episode.
Right.
There's definitely more parts where he hears and his like some of the faint, and I'm thinking that's his version. And here's where he stops him.
Yeah.
He stops him in the first one, and it's right when he has caught. It's Captain Boomerang
From the Sinister
and
Six.
the way that this is, it takes up 2 pages, and they're fighting each other, and they're going at it. He's like, "All right, I give," and he's ready to bow out. He says, "I get to win," and this is where it's important because they bold it. I'm beating the Sinister Six, and they do a very good job of making sure that you know that that's what he's saying, and then they have him zoomed in, and where you get to see the fear in Captain Boomerang's eyes. And then when you cross the Spider-Man, you need to know what happens. And this is when you were talking about how you felt great that Spider-Man comes here and he says no, and he grabs him. Now, when he grabs him, you get to see this look of what's happening and what's going to happen, and it sets you up for the next couple of stories. And it's good to see the wall crawler at work. So, no, I enjoyed that.
Yes, definite. But yeah, good book, Chris. Good choice.
Yeah. How are we for time? Are we?
We're
whatever you need to be,
whatever you
bro.
need to talk about. But we're at the end of the
Sweet.
book. Yeah.
Sweet. We got it all pretty much covered. So I would really encourage everybody to read on all those issues. They had a lot of like separate books that came out around the same time. I know like Superior Foes of Spider-Man was one of them. I think that followed around that version of the Sinister Six. But there's a lot of this little, chapter in Spider-Man's history. There's a lot of content that got generated. That's a lot of fun to read.
Yeah, definitely. I really enjoyed it. I didn't think I was gonna, and I really did enjoy it.
I'm glad.
Before we go with the whole end of the thing, are we gonna release what we're gonna talk about for August, or are we gonna save that?
I was just gonna say, yeah, let's talk about what's next for Longbox.
Because we're planned out, kids. We did some
And
homework.
my memory is so bad that I don't remember what it was. So I have to look here.
Well, it's
Do you remember? Do you have it somewhere?
yeah.
I'm gonna let you guys do this.
Isn't it Kevin Smith's run on Daredevil? Was that what
Yes.
Yes.
That's going to be the next thing that we do. Yeah, Kevin Smith. Since we're already doing the Marvel, this was Kevin Smith's first like comic book, as far as I know, like superhero comic book.
Yes.
So we're going to be talking about that. And we'll talk about a lot about Kevin Smith's comic book writing and all the the ups and downs that career has had. But that's going to be a good one. So that's
for August.
That's what's the name of the book?
Yeah, I just had it. Devil, was it Devil?
That was like Guardian Devil, something like that.
Yeah, Guardian Devil, I believe it's Guardian Devil. So it's a nice little tie-in too, because Netflix will be releasing the Defenders series in August, so that's a little tie-in there for that. So I like that idea. So I can't wait to jump into it.
It is Guardian Devil.
Guardian Devil, yeah. So
Yep, Daredevil Volume 2, 1-8. Kevin Smith, Joe Quesada. Go find some copies or get some trades. And I might go just try to hunt down the copies.
that's cool. All right.
Probably a little bit harder though. But yeah, and that's it. So thanks everybody for joining us. You guys want to say goodbye?
Yeah. Well, do you want to sign us off real quick?
Yeah, guys. So make sure you follow us. I'm going to grab my stuff and look it up so I don't mess it up. So make sure you follow us. You can find this on the website, right on the front page, releasing on the 28th. You guys will be hearing it all at the same time. And then if I can get my stuff together, everything will happen on the 28th.
No way. We're lucky if the.
We'll be happy if the page is up.
We'll be happy if it times the right way, since I'm doing it in advance.
Yeah, so you can check out all the great goodness, all the people that had a part in each and every single comic from volume 1 through 5. We'll give you all that information right on there on the page at thesplashnetwork.com. You can find all of our previous ones too. They're listed and set up there on our website. You can also email us at thesplashpodcast@thesplashnetwork.com. We would love to hear your feedback. Give us advances. If you guys have suggestions of things that we don't think about, maybe what's your favorite comic? Share us. Let us know what you thought about it. If it's a good article, we have some spaces. All right, guys, and follow us on Twitter at @splash_podcast, where you get a chance to win your next month's comic book of
the Kevin Smith Daredevil. We do those things. And follow us on Facebook where there's no activity, but it's a good time anyway. Thank you. Have a good month, guys, and we'll see you guys back here again. Same time, same place.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next month. Thor, why don't you sign us off?
Have a good month, everybody.